I am not going to keep you from hearing an episode about Gatekeepers on the Church Revitalization Podcast now.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu.
Not a gatekeeper.
Not a gatekeeper. You know, should we define... I think our listeners are smart people. We have smart listeners.
Say so. I think our listeners are very smart people. It sounds like maybe you question that, but I think they're very, very smart.
I think they're all very smart. I do think, though, that we do have an international audience, and I'm not sure how much of the term gatekeeper is an Americanism that might be worth a 15-second definition.
Could be something. I don't know. Are all cultures good at just like making up words for things? I would say so.
I think so.
Probably. Everybody's got their own terminology for things.
Yeah. So just by gatekeeper, it's someone whose unofficial approval determines whether or not something actually moves forward. So
sometimes official. I would say sometimes official.
Sometimes official.
When we get into this, there's some official gatekeepers, but yeah.
I guess maybe by a gatekeeper we might say the individual may have formal or informal titles. Mm-hmm. But their power or influence often exceeds even what people would say would be appropriate for even their formal authority. So like they have outsized influence and control, maybe even above and beyond what someone would determine as appropriate given their role. Does that make sense?
Wow, that is quite a definition. That's very formal. It's very formal.
I just think if someone's appropriately using their role, like the authority given to them, I think a gatekeeper is more of a negative term. So if someone's appropriately using their authority to make decisions, I don't know that person's necessarily being like a gatekeeper in a negative sense. I just normally think of a gatekeeper as someone who is maybe has more authority and control even beyond what would be appropriate for their role.
Yeah. That's good. That could be it. Yep. The opposite of a gatekeeper, however, would be one that removes all barriers like we have for checking out the Healthy Churches Toolkit, because you can get 7 days free in the Healthy Churches Toolkit right now by going to healthychurchestoolkit.com. And when you're in there, you could go through our course, perhaps, Scott, on leadership pipeline to make sure that you do have healthy leadership structures in your church and prevent such things from happening where people are barriers between people hearing the information that they need to have to make good decisions.
You know, actually, here's something I know for a fact we've never talked about this because this is a new sort of development. Mm-hmm. I think kind of an interesting side hack. Are you a fan of a side hack?
Side hack? I could go for the side hack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we need to define that term?
No,
I don't think so. Little end around something.
Little end around. Yeah.
Even that end around. I don't know. Is that a football reference?
End around is a football term.
Okay. See, I even got that one.
Okay. So if you go to malphursgroup.com/CMA. Okay. And you sign up for the church ministry analysis process.
Oh, yes. That's a good side hack.
Which is $99.
Mm-hmm.
To have us do a church, like this is a consulting product. Like we're meeting with you. Mm-hmm. A guide is creating this report for you. It's not like it's a totally automated process. It's $99 for the church ministry analysis. And because of the way that we're now doing the church ministry analysis, we're leveraging the Healthy Churches Toolkit as part of that. And so you get 3 months of access to the Healthy Churches Toolkit.
That's pretty good.
For just $99.
$33.33 a month.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's access to all of it, like the whole shebang. So I don't know. Try it free for 7 days if you'd like. healthychurchestoolkit.com. That's where you sign up to get the 7 free days. But if you're like, I wouldn't mind paying 3 months for $99, go to malphursgroup.com/CMA, sign up for the CMA. We'll give you, as part of that process, 3 months of access.
That's good. That's a good deal. I might do that myself.
Yeah.
All right. Gatekeepers in the church, people keeping things from happening. They could be information blockers. They could be process blockers. They could be growth blockers. They could be mission blockers. They're barriers. They're barriers to moving forward with something. And so we've got 3 different ones that we can talk about. Maybe you'll relate to one or more of those today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the first type of a gatekeeper. And the first one would be the gatekeeper who decides what the pastor gets to hear. The gatekeeper who decides what the pastor gets to hear. This is a gatekeeper who filters information to the pastor, controlling like what concerns or complaints or ideas ever reach the leadership level. I guess there's maybe a positive version of this and a negative version of this. Okay. The positive version of this actually goes back to an episode we did recently. I'm sorry, we've recorded so many. This might even be last week, decision fatigue, where we would say, hey, have people underneath you, if you're the pastor, who are able to kind of handle small problems, sort of an Exodus 18 principle that every small thing can be dealt with at some other leadership level. And then sort of you're escalating up or sort of triaging problems that might get to the pastor's level. I would think that this is a healthy thing. This is a good thing. Not every complaint, problem, or challenge needs to make it to the pastor's desk. We would even say that's an unhealthy thing. But the unhealthy version of this is someone who's deciding there's a way to filter information, that things that are important or concerns that are important or decisions that are important. They just totally bypass the pastor. And this gatekeeper is the one who at that point is that has the formal authority that the pastor or maybe the elder board as a whole ought to have.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen this also in, and again, it could be by design, or it could be something that has just happened over time. But even the pastor's secretary or admin assistant, sometimes the pastor,
what meetings he has.
Sometimes the pastor wants that and is like, hey, keep everything away from me except for that. Or over time, they get a sense of, I think that's probably something that he wouldn't want to deal with. And that could be a tricky one. Yeah, that can be dicey.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, again, there's a healthy version of that where it's like, okay, this individual is helping to triage email and the calendar and all of that, because those things can get crazy and out of control. And then there's sort of the unhealthy version of this where it's like, okay, this is a decision that he should have made, or a meeting that he should have had, or a call that should have been put through that just didn't, because this person decided, I don't want him to hear this or see this or know this.
Yeah. Yep. All right. The second type of gatekeeper could be the person that blocks change before it can even be discussed. This
is probably the most common, right?
Probably so. Yeah. It may or may not actually be an individual. It could be more of a group. I mean, an elder board, a deacon board, some kind of authority group could be this. I think if it's an individual, it probably is more of like a ripple effect individual, where they perhaps are against something and they have enough influence where, they're more like the epicenter for something that has gotten blocked, and not necessarily actually have enough individual power to stop something from happening, but just a very influential person that can go, I don't know. Let's make sure this doesn't move forward from this point.
I worked on staff at a church in rural Southwest Virginia back when I was in college. And, in that particular church, it wasn't one individual, but there were, let me just take a step back. If you go behind where this church is, they have a cemetery there. And in that cemetery, they're very proud of that cemetery. They have veterans of every war since the American Revolution buried there. And so if you go around that cemetery and you just start looking at all the headstones, right, you're going to start seeing some, I won't mention any of the names, but you'll start seeing some last names all the way through here. And then if you go on a Sunday morning and you look at the list on who's in the session, and you look at you just look around the room and start to get to know people, you will discover that a lot of those same names of people today have been a part of that church since the 18th century. And so the power structure in that church, very much, it's Presbyterian church, so isn't even necessarily in the session, although a lot of the formal authority is there. There's a lot of informal authority around maybe 2 or 3 families that are still active in the church, whose last names you will see a lot of when you go out into the cemetery. And there is no decision that is being made at that church that doesn't have the informal rubber stamp of those 2 or 3 families in that congregation.
Yeah.
So I think that's common in maybe more rural scenarios. So I've worked with a church where the pastor was not a really good leader at all. And so over years, the church did grow and was pretty successful. It was largely because of a successful businessman who kind of functioned informally as the executive pastor of this church. Not formally at all, didn't have that title, but functioned that way. And he's a really good guy. His character is impeccable, but he by default kind of became this gatekeeper person who he wasn't necessarily blocking change, because he was often an advocate for change, but there was not a decision that was being made at all at that church without his approval.
Yep. Yeah. You can have, you can have healthy influencers in the church. You can have unhealthy influencers in the church, and a healthy influencer would be, questioning decisions against the mission. Is this something that the mission should become the gatekeeper, right, Scott? And so a healthy influencer, healthy leaders would be putting the correct gatekeepers forward, and they would be behind that. An unhealthy influencer, gatekeeper, they make them that. They come before the mission, they come before the vision. So that's the way we talk about change in the church. That's the way we talk about leadership decisions, that you first would your filters for decision making would be, mission. Is this going to help us make or mature disciples? Second level, does this align with our core values? Third, where does it fit in our pathway? Is it not going to overlap with something? Is it not going to overtake something else? And then, is it going to move us forward in our vision? Excuse me. These are all like good, healthy gatekeepers in the church. Our structure and our mission and vision. And then people can support that and hold those up, or people can become barriers to that, and they themselves are the gatekeeper. So,
if you're not really sure if this is a problem or not in your church, maybe one really valuable question you can ask yourself is, are decisions really being made in the boardroom, or are they being made in the parking lot? And if they're being made in the parking lot, then there's a good chance that you've got some informal gatekeepers in your church that might be, even if their intentions are good, they might be working against the mission of your church.
Yeah. Woo. Now we're getting into it, man. This is meaty. All right. The third gatekeeper that we're going to talk about today is the pastor himself. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're the one listening right now. But, Scott, probably we attend conferences or speak at conferences, lead breakout sessions, things like that. So like church leadership conferences that I'm at a lot, probably one of the most common questions that I get, people, come up and ask questions, pull you aside and ask questions. Probably one of the most common scenarios I get asked a lot is by somebody that is there in attendance who is not a decision maker, not in an upper level power position. And they want to know, they tell me about their church, the need for, where they're usually speaking about church health, revitalization, leadership. And they're like, gosh, our church really needs this, but our pastor just won't go for it. How can that's the question. How can I get my pastor to want to do this stuff that you've been talking about?
Yeah.
And the pastor is a gatekeeper, and they're trying to figure out, how do I get around the primary guy, the decision maker that is preventing our church from moving forward? Mm-hmm. And so this is very much in play in a lot of churches, that the pastor is just not interested in doing anything different and is going to shut down conversation about change, whether it could even objectively good change. They're going to say, I don't want to hear about it.
If it's not their idea, it's not something we're doing. Yeah. Yeah, this is a real problem. And we talked about this back in episode 338 when we talked about having sort of a low emotional intelligence. You can go back and listen to that. I think sometimes pastors can confuse control with protection. They think that, hey, no, I'm trying to preserve or protect the mission, or I'm trying to control or protect I'm trying to protect the vision of our church, the integrity of it. But it can be just an ego thing, where they go, man, you know what, if it wasn't my idea, then it's not something I really want to do. And I see this happen sometimes just in how a pastor puts together, maybe they think about the board itself as a tool that they can leverage. So they're maybe they're not totally open with the board about what information they communicate to them. They withhold information and try to paint things in a particular light, rather than seeing that board as a team to help them. If that board pastor relationship is contentious rather than open, then the pastor starts withholding particular information or thoughts from the board, and then how can the board make good decisions if they don't have all of the information? So, I think that if you look at yourself and go, how am I making decisions? If you're a pastor, could someone who works under me come to me with an idea and I would not immediately shut them down? If you're going, no, I think I would. I think I would shut somebody down. Mm-hmm. Then this is not good. This is really, really not helpful. If you can't receive feedback, if you can't hear an idea from someone else, if you're not going to get the credit for something good that happens, and so you're afraid that some young gun on your staff who's a really good speaker, you feel threatened by that anytime they're in the pulpit. Like, all of these are signs that you might be a gatekeeper of some sort, and that your heart's not. Maybe you need to do some heart work.
Yeah, these things really bug me. Actually, these power struggles in the church. Because it comes down to, whose church is it? Is this Christ's church, or is this your church? Mm. And so, yeah, I really get bugged by people, that become barriers like this. It's a sinful elevation of self that you see. And there's no place for that. There's no place for that.
Well, I think too, I think we can all fall victim to this. Maybe to speak a little bit about our world or whatever. If we see if I used to be when I was younger or earlier on in this space that we're in church consulting or whatever, you'd start to be like, man, we got to carve out for ourselves XYZ thing, and the longer that I've been in it, I've been in it over 10 years now. AJ, you're even longer in it. I don't really care. I know what we're good at. I know that if a church comes to us and they're in decline and that they want help and they want to change, I know that I can help them. But if they end up working with some other group or some other person or maybe some denominational thing that they have, whatever, I just don't get defensive about that anymore, because like I'm confident enough in what it is that we do that I don't feel like I have to get something from, like it's some zero-sum game that, okay, if this person works with them instead of us, I just don't get anxiety about that anymore. I'm like, I don't get anxious about that. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are some pastors who feel this way. They look at the church down the street. This person left our church to go to this church. Okay. Like or the youth pastor spoke on Sunday and people raved about it. And so then you feel threatened because you're like, oh, people don't rave about my teaching. Well, they don't hear him every week. You know what I mean? Like, and you're the guy. You're in the position that you should have enough self-confidence. And to your point, AJ, trust in the Lord. Like, who's in control? Mm-hmm. And is it about me being in control, or is it about the Lord? Like, is God sovereign or is he not? If this church goes and works with this other organization, is God not sovereign in that? He is. So why am I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over that. And I'm also confident. I know what the Lord has gifted us. I know, though, that work we do is top-notch and exceptional. I know the effort we put in. I know how hard we work. I just don't care anymore. And that was not true 10 years ago. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a point in there. I'm just saying, if you're struggling with this as a pastor, I just want to encourage you and say, be confident, not in yourself, but in the Lord. You're in the position that you're in. The Lord has placed you there. Don't feel like you have to control every conversation, every relationship to manipulate it for your best outcome, because that's not trusting Jesus. Like, you just trust the Lord. You're going to be fine. And if someone does something really great and they get a lot of praise, great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the healthy version of that. Yeah. And I guess that's good.
Sorry, I know that's kind of a side tangent, but
not quite.
I think that these pastors become gatekeepers because it's about control.
Yes, right. That's right.
And it's insecure. I think at the root of that is insecurity.
Totally. Yeah. Pride. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ego. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yes, you can confidently say, man, that's awesome. That person can go down there, that's going to be fine for them. Whenever you are confidently introspective and you go, yeah, because we know that we're on mission. We've established our vision. We are collaborative in our decision making. We are always self-examining to make sure that we are healthy and scripturally aligned. That's when that confidence in, man, go with the Lord. That's great. When you're like, I don't care if they leave, because you're locked in to what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the unhealthy version of that.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And I guess to go back to my example with us, I guess if every church we talk to, we're like, yeah, they don't do. I guess I would have to, I'd have to re-examine and go, well, what is it that we're doing that churches don't want to work with us? But that isn't the case. I used to be, and I think again it was more of a reflection of my feeling or need for control, or wanting whatever, and I just don't feel that anymore. I go, I've been doing this long enough. I know we do exceptional work, but we're not going to be the fit for everybody, and that's okay. Like, I'm just not losing sleep over that. I'm just not.
Yeah. Plus, we don't have like a sales process. We've never cold called a church like, hey, you probably
No, we don't do that. Yeah.
Every 100% of the churches we were with called us.
They called us,
which is awesome. That is, I guess, is what we celebrate, right? This church has looked at themselves enough where they're like, maybe we need to talk to somebody about helping us. That's right there is like 99% of the battle.
That's a good point.
And so, yeah, cool. If our process is not what you think is right for you, then yes, please keep your search up and go find somebody.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how we made that about us, made this episode about us.
It was me. I made it about us. I was just trying to, I feel like sometimes in the podcast we can go, hey, you pastors, you deal with XYZ thing. And I was, as I'm prone to do, I just want to go, hey, I understand that feeling. I'm not on the church staff space anymore, so I don't have the same kinds of maybe thoughts or insecurities that a pastor would have. But I was trying to correlate that to our work, where I would go, in the past, I would maybe compare myself to someone else and maybe feel like, oh, well, I need to be as good or better than, and I just don't feel any of that anymore. Like I'm confident in our work, but I'm also confident in the Lord. Like I know the mission He's given us. I know He's given us kind of a space and a really clear, like, here's what I want you guys to work on. And I was trying to correlate that and say it's similar. We know what our field is. We know what our mission is. We know that we're equipped to do this work. And then if it's not a fit for this church or whatever, like I said, fine.
Yeah. That's right.
It's all good.
That is right. Live to fight another day. Moving on. All right. Well, there you go. Gatekeepers in the church. So yeah, if any of these are something that resonate with you, or if you maybe you're thinking to yourself that is me, then yeah, I mean, we'd love to have that conversation with you. I guess we are not what we do isn't deposing gatekeepers. That's not what we're about. But we can help your church develop healthy structures.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the way to actually work around the gatekeeper problem is to empower healthy structures rather than work to tear down a gatekeeper. I just don't think that works. We were talking about this off air, but power is a thing that exists. Like it's neutral. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a reality. And what the gatekeeper problem occurs because there are unhealthy or unaccountable structures that exist.
Undefined,
or undefined. And so power fills that vacuum. And depending on who's on the other end of that, you can have gatekeepers who are actually good people. I mentioned that earlier. So it's not always like a totally awful situation, but it's still not the way you'd want it to be. Even if that person is a good person or that family, those are good families that mean well, that's still not the ideal situation. You'd rather have a system and a structure that's functioning properly so it's accountable, and faithful to the mission. And so, what we don't do is depose the gatekeepers. But what we can do is help you to build a healthy structure that disables the power, essentially, of what those gatekeepers can do.
There you go. More information on that at malphursgroup.com. Go and check that out. You can reach out, have a meeting with us, and we can talk about what's going on in your church. We love hearing from you. We love talking about churches. So we can have that conversation. Thanks for being with us, everybody. This has been the Church Revitalization Podcast, and Scott and I will be back again with you next week.